Welcome, everyone, to another Power Talk session with our amazing Powerful Women Today mentor experts. And today, the fact that we are discussing this at 7 o'clock at night Eastern tells you how important energy is when you are a leader and a definitely a creator, and you are just sharing your wisdom to the world. So let's get to it.
Empowering women on a global scale. Welcome to Powerful Women Today with Carolina Billings. Powerful Women Today is on a mission of inclusion, rewriting his story to include her story, and empowering, raising, and amplifying women's voices with professional speaking, publishing, original podcasting, and web TV. And now here's your host, the founder of Powerful Women Today, Carolina Billings.
Welcome, everyone. We are so delighted. We were just in the green room, and I cannot wait to ask questions and to hear this brilliant panel of Powerful Women Today mentor experts. And so we have a great panel today. We have Dr. Alex Swanson Ridley, who joins us. She's on her personal time in Vancouver, and she's still committed to showing up and joining us today. Dr. Swanson specializes in hormone transformations. So she's literally physiologically and biologically working with energy. Then we also have Dr. Lisa McGill joining us from California. Dr. McGill specializes in the motion, and you ladies will introduce yourself way better, but it's activating your energy through movement and through engaging in just don't sit still, no matter how old you are. It's like the fountain of youth. And of course, we've got Simone Sloan coming to us from New York, who is a DEI executive coach, and herself also with her doctorate in the health industry. And I am Powerful Women Today. I am Carolina Billings, founder of Powerful Women Today. And mindful energy to me comes through mindfulness and mindset. So we're going to have a fabulous discussion. So Dr. Swanson or Dr. Alex, if you could get us started, introduce yourself, and then pass the mic to our colleagues.
Absolutely. I've got a dog who might make himself known, but I'm Dr. Alex. As Carolina shared, I started my journey as a chiropractor, and actually in my own experience of burnout and just absolute hormonal chaos that came with that, have really delved heavy into not just treating symptoms of hormone balance, but really how do we get to the root of actually healing internally so that our hormones can balance and function no matter your age or any of that. And energy has a huge role to play in that, and getting it back for sure. I know that's a thing I hear from a lot of women, so I'm excited to just dive into this
love that no
conversation.
matter the age, because the reality is that every 7 years your body renews, right? If what I read is correct. So you're constantly going through hormone transformation, and understanding each stage is key, right? To really leveraging it and not just like popping a pill or buying into what, culture or the public discourse says. So Elisa, would you like to go next?
Sorry, I had muted myself. Hi. Hi, everybody. Dr. Elisa McGill, and my business is Endurance Business Builders, and I became very passionate about what it is I share because I started, as I listening to these lovely ladies talk and previous conversations, we all go through so many stressors in life, and it's not about taking ourselves out of the stressors, because that's really impossible to do in the world we live in today. There's always going to be something, but it's about how can we optimize our own energetic rhythms and keep ourselves energized and alive and motivated to keep going. And these are some of the things that, as I went through my journey, I recognized what was triggering me into the downward spiral of just wanting to curl up on the couch, and what was really energizing me and helping me to get up, get out, and get going. And so these are some of the things that I'll be sharing with you today as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Simone.
Hello, everyone. Simone Sloan, my company is Your Choice Coach, and as Carolina mentioned, diversity, equity, inclusion, and executive coaching work. And I think when I think about energy, that's something I bring a lot of. But as entrepreneurs, as businesswomen, as professionals, we also need to understand how get more emotionally in touch with ourselves to understand when we're giving too much, right? And when we're
Mhm.
overextending and not being able to fuel ourselves so that way we can be effective for ourselves, but for others around us. And so that's the perspective and lens I'm taking today as we're talking about energy.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. So, personally, I happen to be Hispanic, and I don't know, we're just born, with a little pep in our step. But that being said, learning to harness the right level of energy, and you just said something really important, Simone, not to overdo it, right? Because sometimes we think that leadership, and especially at the executive level, is all about always being the cheerleader, always being on, always being, like this, and that's not always possible, and not nor is it authentic. So I would like to start there, and before we go, I want to acknowledge some of our very own that are here to champion, and to also that you know what, actually Liz specializes in selling professional services, and her energy level, she can teach us quite a few things. So thank you, Liz. And we also have our very own Jackie Joy, actually is right here saying hello. And oh, I'm so excited about this because she just joined, literally like the ink is drying. And it's Sarah, who is coming to champion single parents. And I cannot be more thrilled, and talk about energy, talk about the need for energy. So let's start with leadership. One of the things I remember from corporate was all the drama that would occur in the office, right? Like there was always somebody in the bathroom going through something, or in the kitchen, or some things. And all I remember as a CFO and CHRO, like especially in human resources, right? You don't have the luxury to do that in my opinion, in positions of leadership, right? Like, it doesn't matter what you're going through. You're not going to have a meltdown, or you're not going to just not show up. Or at least that is my personal practice. Yet there is a lot of power in authenticity and vulnerability. So I would like to start that. So if Dr. Alex, if you could get us started on that, what kind of pressure do leaders put on ourselves above and beyond what is real? What is realistic? Sorry.
Yeah, well, and I think, I mean, we may as well distinguish like women leaders versus men, because I think men possess an ability. I've watched this in my husband, who's the president of a huge organization of like 1,000 people in Alaska, but like they just shut down at the end of the day, whereas women, we tend to bring stuff home, and we're like in our heads thinking about XYZ. And I've got several clients that have learned that they have to learn how to set the boundaries to actually turn it off. And I think that's one of the big things, is like there has to be boundary. We're talking about manage your energy, not your time. And then within that is like start time, end time to your day, especially when we transition to working from home, or those who are still in a hybrid scenario. Like it can be a huge drain if you're just always on, always thinking about work, always doing that. And I'll let someone else chime in, but like that would be the first place I start, is like there has to be an off switch.
Boundaries, right? And I
Yeah.
find, especially working from home, is one big blur. It's like, people, and my ex-husband, we're still co-parenting quite successfully. We're better at the current co-parenting than we were when we were together. But he will come in and go like, what do you mean you're ordering takeout? Right? It's like you're home all day. It's like, yeah, but I'm working. Like, it's like it's sometimes it's 10-12 hour days. And there's that blurring, right? Because your availability to your family and to other, responsibilities around the house, seems to show up all at the same time. So what do you guys think, Elisa?
Well, this is something I've given a lot of thought to over the years, and being a leader, not just in my own business, but in the past with several or positions, but not several positions, but projects and so forth, as the dean, as doing different things in university leadership. You have so many other people that you're managing. And my viewpoint on that is that it's more related to servant leadership or transformational leadership theories. I really look at the fact that I'm there for them. I'm there to take care of them. So couple that with being a woman who by nature, and I'm not saying all women or no men are like this. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is, for myself, I've always felt, well, it's my job to take care of everybody. And I also coupled that with feeling guilty if I took time out for myself. I don't know if anybody here has ever felt that way, especially when you have something else to do. So I noticed for me that started putting me into a bad situation with health over the years, because I would say yes to everybody else because I'm like, I can take care of that. I can take care of them. And I did. But when it came to me, I let that go by the wayside. And so I started rethinking the way I took care of myself. And I designed a program basically that's called Distraction to Action, which I'll be launching in the spring again. But in there, I put something all about self-leadership, being our own best leader. So yeah, we're leading teams and we're taking care of these other individuals. And that's our job. We need to do that. We need to take care of them, but we cannot be there for them. We cannot be energetic. We cannot be motivating. We cannot be a great mentor if we are draining our own energy and we don't feel like getting up and doing anything. We're not going to be any good. And that goes for our personal lives as well. If we go home and we're drained and tired, we're not going to be present for our significant other, our children, our pets, anything, our friends. So these are things that we do have to remember. Take care of not just your team and your coworkers, but take care of yourself. And that includes the subject that we're talking about, is learning how to manage your energy. And with that, I'll pass the torch into
Simone?
Sure. I go for the mantra that self-care is not selfish. And so I am very selfish when it comes to my self-care. And I say that because for 2 hours in the morning, I know that's my exercise time where I'm doing my yoga, I'm burning my calories, I'm thinking about different things in my day, but I'm also ensuring that I'm taking care of me first, because I know my cup will fill it over and I can take care of others. So I've learned that, right, from that perspective. But when you think about women who work in the workplace, and especially with hybrid working and things of that nature, the number one complaint is burnout. And why? They're doing a couple of things, right? They're doing their work, but they're also, as part of that volunteerism within the organization of evolving a culture, getting involved with DEI work, they're also being engaged in that. And there's a disconnect between how they're being rewarded for their time and how they're negotiating that in terms of doing their work and getting ahead, but also doing the work to ensure that they have a place that's inclusive and belonging as part of the work.
And you know what? And I love what you just said, because there's a second shift at work and a third shift at home, for which is unpaid work. And a lot of times is not only not realized, but not valued.
Right.
If you're fortunate, you are cherished for it, and you're getting some kind of fulfillment and gratitude from it. But it feels better, tastes better when it is acknowledged and shared, right? And there was an article that I just saw fly by recently that said, more than ever, two articles. One said, more than ever, women executives are calling it quits. And there was another one that actually niched down into women in tech. And they were saying that they've actually lost an entire generation of women mentors because there were just a handful to begin with, and they've called it quits. And now the gap was like, it's not like they were already mentoring the next generation, right? So these calling it quits and this overwhelm, because there's something I want to touch on, and I want to see how you guys feel about these. Working remotely via Zoom or via, video takes twice as much energy as it does in person. It just seems that, you need to, for all communication, you need to level it up a bit so that it comes through as it would in person. What do you guys think about that? Jump in, anybody.
I'll go ahead and start. I'll just say I think it depends on the individual, really, because some people, when they're, as I'm sure you all know, introversion and extroversion doesn't mean that you're shy or not shy. I know it somehow gets clustered in with that, but it's more of where you draw your energy from. So a strong introvert, being around a lot of people might really drain them. So having that opportunity to maybe go off camera for a bit, walk away, come back, might help them manage their energy a little bit better. Not saying again for everybody, but it would depend on the person. I do think being around technology for so much and having to stare at unnatural lighting, listening to the twang of a microphone and not being able to feel the energy of the other person can also be draining. So it depends on the individual, how much it's going to affect them and in what way. But really allowing everybody an opportunity to engage is important, I think, and try to keep that connection going as much as possible. But there is you miss out on the energy that you feel, even when you walk into a room, if they're excited and I'm sure each of you who's ever been in a situation where there's a serious situation going on, you walk into the room and it's almost like you can cut the air with a knife, right? We feel energy. Even my dissertation was on emotional intelligence, and it was really interesting that they did thermographic studies that measured the energy of the heart and the energy of the mind. And the mind was only about a foot, whereas the heart, it went 12 feet, and it was probably longer than that because that's all the machine measured. So we really do feel energy from people, and we're missing that on a Zoom. But that doesn't mean that we can't
energy. Yeah, like you said, it's actually measurable.
Yeah, doesn't mean we still can't keep it going. So it's more challenging, I think, and we need more breaks on Zoom. That's my personal opinion.
And that is where self-regulation comes on. Not too long ago, I almost got a virtual haircut because I had booked my appointments, and I was bad that I would book them like back to back to back to back to back, right? And then I saw like, I had a 1:00. It's like, and it was like 12:45. I'm like, oh, great. I've got 15 minutes before my next meeting. And then I look at my meeting and it's a haircut. And it's like, oh, I actually need to be somewhere else in that. It's like, I only got 15 minutes to get there. It's like, run. And I got there, and, it wasn't as funny when I got there. And I was saying about the virtual haircut that, is that back to back. And one of the things that I actually learned that from Simone and Leona was to not schedule full, like if it's a previous 30-minute meeting, now there's 20 minutes. If it was a previous hour meeting, now it's 45. Because there's that little bit of self-care, or even, if I promise somebody something after the call, I have at least 15 minutes to get it done so that it doesn't get forgotten. But we have some comments here. We say that's fascinating. There's quite a bit. Excellent point. And boundaries need to be set to maintain the energy. And I can definitely relate. And we have, oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate your comments. Now, recently, I learned. Now, my dissertation is in marketing, so I'm in great company here with actually healthcare, dissertations. But that being said, what I recently found out, which is what inspired today's topic, is manage your energy, not your time. Is that I was not paying attention to my energy level when I was dealing with something I didn't want to deal with, or that wasn't working for me, or whether it was technology, or sometimes the universe kind of tells you, like, when nothing is working, right? And I would continue and I would continue, and then somewhere I came across that said, you know what, walk away, just if you can, right? Like, just walk away from it and only do creative work, because we're creators as thought leaders. Only do creative work when you're in the right energy, in the right frame of mind, because it will translate to your messaging. Your mood will translate to your work, right? And if you manage to, so I've been trying it for like the last 3-4 weeks, and I'm finding that I'm able to do more by just ignoring it, just walking away. Where before I wouldn't. I would stay there until it got done, right? And now it's like, you know what? It's just not going to be good quality work anyways. So walk away. And that is almost the antithesis of a high performer, right? Quitting is just not an option. And we said, in actually it was Dr. Alex and I had a great conversation one-on-one, which I'll link down below, speaking about selfless syndrome. Can you share a little bit about that now, Dr. Alex?
Yeah. Well, Lisa actually described it pretty well, but it's that, innate desire we have as women to just give and give and give and keep, take care of everyone and everything else around us except ourselves. And while it's like something that's programmed in us, I think, generationally and all of that, it's also what I've really identified it as in preparing for my own dissertation in integrative medicine, but is that it's like a modern day stress response. We actually, like the female in general, we always, like, if you see an animal who's under threat, they make sure they're young or okay, and then they deal with the threat. And we're making sure everything is around us is okay, but we don't have a chance to de-escalate. And so some of the stuff that we're talking about, with managing your energy instead of your time, it's about creating space to de-escalate whatever those things look like for you. And it's always like, well, manage your stress better and all that. There's like specific things, but it took me a year, like all of last year, to learn how to incorporate things that build my energy back up. And this was, I'd been burned out for 5 years, like literally, where I pushed so much out, there was nothing there anymore. Like I was so far past my capacity. And so for anyone who's in that place, it's possible to bring it back, but it requires some intentionality. And one of those things for me, just in talking about this, I've actually gotten I used to block schedule. Like if there was a chunk of time without something for me to do, it got filled all day. And now it's like, and that, helped when I was managing a 7-figure chiropractic practice and a single mom and like doing all these things. But now it's like, if I don't have white space, we have a problem. And for me, what white space is a time where I walk away from the computer. Pen to paper is something that really works. It's not that I stop working on something, but I will actually write, because that is something, like with my hand, that's something that brings my energy back. It's finding those things that do that for you. Or it might be like sitting and staring out the window. It's doing yoga. Like I have freedom and flexibility for whatever. And I learned it helps.
It's always funny what ends up energizing. Yeah. So you guys touched on. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I've learned to protect that, because I know that it makes me better and I'm more efficient and effective. Like as a mom, I also homeschool. So, as a business owner, as a mom, as a teacher and wife and all the things, of course I do, because I have to do everything, right? But like, I'm only as good as I make time for that. and that's where my energy is.
You both touched on two important things. One is during our conversation, because we've trained people that this is what we do, right? We're like this bottomless bank account that we keep dispensing, and we've trained people around us. And, and I'm equally guilty that I could be dead tired. And, I hear my son coming home and he's like, oh, would you like me to warm up your dinner? Right. It's like, and to me, it's because it's the only little bit of parenting that I get to do anymore. Right. But it's like, this could be after a 10-12 hour day, right? And not that he needs it, but it just comes out, just like you said, it's so in our DNA. But so there are two things that I want to touch on that. One is culturally, right? And I go to Simone, and with our DEI, in generationally and also culturally, right? Is the superwoman a North American thing? Are we, the victims of our own demise?
Absolutely. But what's interesting though is that when you talked about being a high performer and you said, oh, we're going, 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 I'm going to pause a bit because I think there's a huge awakening taking place in terms of what it really means to be high performing. And it does not necessarily mean being turned on 24/7. It really means, how do I get, like you said earlier, how do I get my maximum effectiveness? And we know when I need to rest my brain, get different stimulations, move away from things, shift that energy, and come back when I'm ready. And I think when you look at a next study, for example, I think Deloitte did a study and looked at the millennials, the Gen Zs, generations. And that's one of the huge things that they're clamoring for: well-being, mental space, right? And I think that we really need to look at it from a not generationally, but also from a society perspective in terms of what does success look like? What does it take to get there? And what does it really look like for us to be 360, a whole human being, and not one-sided, burned out, and the other side, you're so burned out, you don't know what to do with yourself after that. And it's a balance that needs to take place.
And can I add to that?
Yeah, of course, darling.
Something.
Of course.
And when I was sharing before, I love what you said, Simone. It's so true, and yeah, really rings true. When I was sharing before about the journey that I went through and feeling guilty for not spending time on me, when my health started to suffer and I took a step back and went, wait a minute, I need to apply everything that I'm helping other people with to myself. Then I started to see a change. And one of those things is understanding what will keep energizing me, what keeps me going forward as an individual. And so, Simone, like you, in the morning, that's my time now. I wake up and I exercise. And I know I hate it when I hear about diets or like, you don't have to exercise. I'm like, why? That's the best part. I mean, I come alive when I get to move, right? So I'll go now. I wish we were on Zoom because you could see this beautiful picture that I have up as my screensaver by the beach. And I go there and I'll do my hikes and walks and I do the stairs and then I get so excited and I start putting all my ideas down on my phone. So when I get back to the office,
absolutely,
like, he's written entire books that way. And I've witnessed it. It's like, it's last minute, and I'll be nudging and there's an anthology or the magazine or something coming up and I'll be, Lisa, do you have your chapters? She's like, no, you'll be done. I'm just like, okay. And then she'll go for a run and come back and he's like, there you go. It's like, oh, okay.
And so part of it is, our learning styles and our work styles. And so I work on everything up here ahead of time. It's not all on paper, but I'll go somewhere and I'll be inspired. And from, like, Carolina, what you were saying before, you come at it with this from an energy and from a space of that inspiration. And when you raise your energetic vibration to that same level, it will flow from you. It's the state of flow.
Absolutely.
So that's where the genius can be captured in each individual. And so finding that state of flow is really going to help you. I talk a little bit about that in one of my books, harness your entrepreneurial ADD. Because I started thinking, do I have that? Because I'd get so distracted by everything going on. A lot of mistakes that I made through the years is what really helped me learn. But for each individual, if we can start to identify what it is that energizes us, like not everyone, I'm training for a marathon, right? Not everyone would say, get excited about that. But maybe Simone might. She might, yeah, let's go do that. So it depends on the individual. Again, circling back to understanding ourselves, knowing what it is, listening for what our body reacts to in a positive way. When you walk away from something, if you feel inspired, do more of that.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel drained, avoid it. So that's
so simple. Yeah. And it's like, if it hurts, my father was also a doctor, and which is, I tell you, as a kid, is the worst thing you can have, to have a medical doctor as your father, because you can't pull anything, right? And I remember, as a kid saying, "Oh, it hurts when I do this," and he would say, "Just don't
do it."
Problem solved. But the thing is, a lot of it is our own doing. Is our taking responsibility for both. One, not listening to our body, and two, the pressure we put on ourselves, right? Because my business happens to be called Powerful Women Today. So I put on the responsibility that every time I show up, it has to be in power, right? No one dials in to connect with me to be, oh, it's all hopeless. I just, I am like, it's okay, right? Like, there's these inner responsibility that is how I need to show up. However, the last few times, I just happened to find out I had a sinus infection. It was giving me headaches, and I actually had to disclose it. And I would show up at meetings and say, and actually, it was one of the meetings with poor Elisa, that I said, like, I have a really bad headache, and I am sorry, but I can't. I am not even being coherent here. And it's not something I normally do. We've been working, some of us have been working together for years, and you can take the money to the bank that I'll be cheerful and happy and powerful every time we dial in, right? And what I was most shocked was just the generosity. She's like, "Oh, absolutely. Like, I don't want to talk to you when you're not going to remember what we're talking about."
Self-care, take care of yourself. I'm not going to drag you through that.
I appreciated that, especially from high performers, right? Like, I appreciated that generosity. It's like almost letting me off the hook. And that comes from a woman, because I remember a few years back, we had a gentleman whom I adore still. I was one of our mentor experts, and he was a high performance coach, right? And I happened to have lost my voice because I had laryngitis. I don't get sick that often. I don't even know why I'm recounting the 3, 4, 5 times I've gotten sick in the last 10 years. But so I had laryngitis and I had lost my voice. So, and this is before all the Zoom craziness. So there was still a lot of phone calls and stuff. And I remember, like, all the appointments that I had, as soon as they would come in, and they could hear, like, I wasn't bailing out, but they could hear I had no voice, right? And everybody would go, "Sweetie, let's just reschedule," right? And then the one gentleman that was the high performance coach was like, "Nope, I can hear you. We can do this." And I bloody went through the call because he was not letting me off the hook, right? And so there's that expectation, and we have some comments here. Let's see. If you feel inspired, do more. This is the motivation behind getting to join all of you amazing ladies. Thank you, darling. We got some laughing. I guess we're sharing our amusement of ourselves. And let me see. I started to bring creative outlet time, start playing the piano again. Now I don't get to see the name. Sometimes the name comes through or doesn't. But whoever's playing the piano, that is lovely. And so I want to go back to the actual control that we have, right? So through hormones. So let's start hormones first. What can we do when we begin to notice changes in our body?
It's a big question.
Oh, you got 1 minute.
1 minute, go. The biggest thing I've learned about hormones, and there's in the world of more holistic approaches to things, this is the teaching, is that it's not the hormones, it's their environment. And so if you're, it's, and I find, we're approaching an age where women are more open to talking about hormone stuff and menopausal age in particular, which is great. But a lot of us are going into that stage of life already being out of whack because we haven't been paying attention. And so I think that's part of why, I don't have any scientific evidence to back this up, but a lot of people agree with me. That's why we're seeing more symptoms with perimenopause and menopause, and even postmenopause. So knowing that, like, it's about learning it's a lot of the things that we've been talking about here. Like, we have to learn how to connect with ourselves. We have to learn, my journey with this started when a coach asked me, like, where do you feel that in the body, when I was talking about some stuckness with mindset stuff. And I was like,
It sounds woo-woo when people ask it, don't it?
Talking about yeah. And like, I feel nothing below here. And so I've spent this last year like learning how to feel things in my body. And it's gotten to the point where I can now recognize, like, hey, this is totally draining my energy. Let me go do something else. And I've come back from burnout, and I do a lot of stuff with, I call them energy centers, but chakra areas of just like tuning into that, because they're all connected to your hormones, actually. And so if you've got hormonal issues, we're talking chakras 1, 2, 5, probably 3.
Your
too.
power centers, right? Your power centers throughout your body, and they're real. Just because it's not a Western way of thinking does not mean that it doesn't have its basis on reality. Right. So listen, we design entire buildings based on feng shui, right? Well, that's energy. So why wouldn't we take care of our body the same way, right? That's just, I don't understand that. So then let's go back to the environment. We recently had one of our own, Monica Gretzek, speaking of things or products that disrupt your hormones. And so it's from the air, from, the toxicity around the room. Like if you're, surrounded by that negatively charged, right? Unconscious biases, microaggressions, all those things can affect your energy. So what are some tips or strategies that you recommend, especially, and I go back to culturally, because I remember, and I love my family. I do love my family. I remember I did most of my growing up, my maturing in the United States. So I grew up with more of an equality, kind of point of view than the traditional Latin American, women, men kind of thing. And I remember my brother telling me when I got back, and I would have an opinion on things, right? Like, I don't know, history has been written by men, and little factual nuggets. And he would go, you know what? I don't think you're going to be able to find a husband. Oh, right. It's like they were deeply concerned. And when I got married to my ex-husband, they were so grateful. It's like, thank you for accepting her, radical points of view. And one of the most conservative people you're going to meet, but to Latin Americans, that's radical. So culturally, back to what we were speaking to a few minutes ago. So we have an awakening that we realize, you know what, this is not working for me. Right? I need my own time. I need, I need my own space. I need to share some of the caregiving in household responsibilities and in such. How do we untrain and undo what we've done by having that servant leader kind of mentality at home, with like at 24/7?
The first thing that comes to my mind is really giving yourself the permission to do it. And I think you said some things before where you're looking for this male figure in the room to give you the hook off, when really being empowered around it is saying, hey, listen, I'm not well. We're going to reschedule this and let's just pick a time, right? not waiting for someone to give you that permission, but taking it and owning that space for yourself. Because if you don't, you're always going to be looking for others to get you off the hook, as what kind of words that you used prior to, as opposed to being empowered to say, hey, listen, I'm not feeling well. I can't move forward. Let's take a break. And having the team recognize that, because now what you're doing too is giving them permission when they don't feel well to say something and
Correct.
to advocate for themselves.
Because that's how culture is created, right? Is what you accept and you
Absolutely.
reward. Is
Absolutely.
that is so so important. Yes. And how about these pressure on meetings? And again, we're talking about like you guys on video pretty much every day, 24/7, not 24/7, but whatever. Um yeah, whatever day I've lost, I've stopped taking, I keep time for the benefit of others. I've just given up on it. But what I was going to say, this pressure, like video on. Have you guys attended meetings where they actually tell you to attend this meeting is video on? If your video is off, you will be politely removed from the meeting. What is that all about?
I've not experienced that, so I'd love to hear if you all have. I've not experienced that.
I
Actually,
think
just
for
encountered it for the first time. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't personally like that because then you're taking away that individual's choice. If they're at home and they don't have a good background, they may not want people to see. Or if they're driving, some people are listening into a training, and they need more bandwidth on their computers. So having video messes with that. There may be several reasons why. But I have taught, because I'm a university professor as well, and I have taught hybrid courses where I ask the students to have their camera on because we have to make sure that they're there and that they're interacting. So
Yes.
that was different. And I did have a
Mhm.
situation once where I knew the student wasn't listening, and I asked a question and everybody raised their hand and he didn't. And I called on him specifically and said, if you can hear me, raise your hand. If you can't hear me, type in the chat. And after a while, I said, everybody raise your hand for a while. And then the student saw, and all of a sudden he raised his hand. So I knew he wasn't listening. It was probably gaming or doing something, else. I don't know what was the situation, but it helps you to be able to identify in that type of situation because you have
Yeah, in
people,
academics.
they have to be present in that situation. I could see the importance of it. Otherwise, I do know it's good, but it depends on the type of training and what they need to do. But I also really like to allow that individual to make their own choices. I will request it if I'm doing a personal training for my business, but I say, if you can't, I understand. I'm just happy that you're here. That's just my take on it.
Yeah, I just encountered it for the first time, and it kind of my video is always on, but the fact that I've been told that I have no choice.
I think it has to be some mindfulness
so,
also in terms of the diversity in the room, right? Because if you have an abilities or identify someone with a disability, for example, introverted, or even in for the perspective of just being on a spectrum, neurodiversity, that might not be the optimal thing. So I think it comes into consideration of understanding the audience in the room and giving those options just from a diversity, equity, inclusion perspective.
And that goes back to leadership, right? Our energy, how when you're dealing with others, you really need to put your energy neutral, really, so that their energy can come out, right? Is so so powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Dr. Alex, so women
Yes.
because by the way, men go through menopause as well, and they are as hormonal as we are. It just shows differently. It just shows differently. Like, come on, let's face it, right? And so what can we do? Like what are some, and I love the transformation. So you are not going to make your hormones be 20 again, or can you?
No, there's lots of anti-aging things out there that'll say like, "Oh, I feel like you're 20 again." I mean, there's ways to. I've certainly
20
had.
minutes.
We want a
I've
secret.
had
We want a secret.
like the women I work with who are older than me, I'm not quite 40, but they're in their 40s and 50s. Like one of the first things I hear is like, I get the text, like, I have so much energy. I don't know what to do with myself. What am I supposed to do with myself, Dr. Alex? And like, I want everyone to live there, right? And but we don't get there by, it's not like take some caffeine pills or any of that. It's really starting to get in touch with yourself, as we said before. So like the first two things I teach everyone is how to breathe and drinking enough water, because those are two things that nobody does enough, and that's going to start to shift your environment. It starts to decrease stress. It's going to start to change. It doesn't happen overnight, but those are like, if anyone wants some really simple, I'm on my third one of these today. These are like 50-ounce bottles. I currently drink like at least my entire body weight in ounces of water. So you can't really overdo it.
Awesome.
But, those are areas that don't take a lot of time, that, will start to make an impact. And honestly, I've had women who have been, struggling to lose weight because their hormones are changing for 5 years, and just from breathing and water, the scale finally moved. Because it's not that you're doing the wrong things. It's just that the environment that your body is in is not being supported by the things you're doing. So we need to start to support it.
Now you
a lot of the cortisol.
Now you
and
tell me.
inflammation around it. I'm just curious because when you
Sorry,
talk
Simone,
about
say that one more time.
cortisol levels, just thinking of the pharmacist and the physiological things that are going on in the body, and just the cortisol levels, and people not aware that when you are stressed, they go on hyper levels, right?
Yeah.
And
Well, and I see even more, especially with high achievers and high performers, like we don't recognize when we're stressed because we just live there all the time. And so until you actually train yourself to de-escalate, it's like, oh crap, like I'm actually stressed all the time. And I have a lot of these conversations with women. I'm like, I don't care if you think you're stressed or not, just do these things.
Absolutely.
And let's
Because
see
we've
what happens.
normalized it.
Even
We
being
do.
burnt out,
Normalized it. Yes.
Yeah.
even being burnt out, we don't, like you're saying, Dr. Alex, we don't always recognize it until we have a chance to slow down. So when
Yeah.
you've revved for so high, you're used to that feeling. And if you slow down a little bit in the moment, it doesn't feel right. It feels like you have to pick something up and do something. But when you finally allow yourself a chance to slow down, all of a sudden it hits you. And I've been in this position before, and I actually needed to allow my body a chance to heal from extreme burnout. Overwhelm is one thing, but if it goes for too long, it goes to burnout. And as you know, that also goes into adrenal drain and all the different things that just steal our energy from us. So recognizing this, what causes our stress, but not just that, but don't allow ourselves to go through it for so long to where it beats us down and ends up to where we maybe can't recover from it. That's the ultimate loss right there, is if we let it go that far along. But yeah,
as an entrepreneur, when you work for corporate, even at the executive level, you got a little bit of cushion, right? Like, you're within an infrastructure. But when you're an entrepreneur, and is the second that you take, if you're still running a practice, meaning you got to touch everything you generate, right? The pressure to keep on going, because the second you take off the foot off the gas, you see your business. I even see it on really, this whole social media thing is being our antithesis for high performers, because even on LinkedIn, right? Like if you're not constantly posting, your view, like your algorithm, right, goes down, and then you kind of go in and you're used to double digits, or whatever, sorry, 5 figures, I guess, and of your run rate. And then if you don't do it for a couple of days, you go back and it's like, wah, wah, wah. It's like, damn it, like you gotta keep pedaling, right? And that's one of the things that I find in entrepreneurship, having gotten to the burnout, and I must say, professionally, there's other areas of my life where I've hit burnout, but professionally, I've been fortunate that I haven't. But as an entrepreneur, and the new mandate and this is we just started a new fiscal year. We're about to start a new fiscal year. So it's my absolute mandate is to really champion every single one of us, starting with our mentor experts and then every woman out there, to begin to create freedom-based businesses. Because we left working 80-hour weeks or 60-hour weeks to work 100-hour weeks. Now, I wouldn't trade it for the world, right? But really, how long can you do that? Like at some point, as your business matures, you do need to start, leveraging the aggregate is something they're going to edge on my tombstone. We need to start as women entrepreneurs, really begin to leverage freedom-based business. What does that mean? Building your business in a way that there is passive income. And I just, as I say that, I need to tell you one, there's the other side of the equation to passive income, because that's only half the story. There's no such thing as passive income. There's only passive income when it's actively marketed. So working with, collaboration groups, it doesn't need to be us. It can be any other brilliant, fabulous collaboration group like us, that you leverage that aggregate, that you manage to get to as many people, start building all of your freedom-based assets in your IP, in your digital, and all of that, in order to be able to get sick for a couple of days and tend to an emergency, and not having the back of your mind that if I'm not working, I'm not earning. And that goes to hormones and burnout. Sorry, I cannot help you with the medical part, but I can help you with the marketing and business strategy. So that is part of it, that we as women, CEOs, and we as women, practitioners, need to take the time, because all those things take time, right? So we tend to kind of brush them aside. But really, we need to think long term. So that's my contribution. Sorry, I couldn't help you with the hormones and the exercise and all the good stuff that the ladies brought. Yes, Elisa?
I just have to say, too, the research shows that if you keep something in your life you love, it helps you manage stress. So basically, I've taught classes for a couple decades. So when I would ever introduce myself to a class, I'd always ask them, what are your hobbies? What do you love to do? And then I'd encourage them to keep it in their life, even if it's just an hour or two per week, do something. And that is one of the reasons now why I encourage movement and exercise and nature and nurture, basically literal nature and nurture in taking care of yourself and learning and self-development. I'm actually going to be published soon in a journal, a peer-reviewed journal, called the Transdisciplinary Journal of Management. And I wrote an article entitled Optimal Energetic Rhythms for Kinesthetic Business Builders.
Wow.
I'm excited about that.
And we're publishing that on our magazine as well, because we do publish peer review.
Well,
That is so exciting.
to that. But it's the point I'm making is really just figuring out what it is you are energized by, and doing that, putting it in your business somehow, putting it in your life somehow. So it's
Awesome.
it's so important.
I feel obligated to do a plug. So this is our winter issue. Our spring issue of Powerful Women Today magazine is coming out in 3 weeks. And all of our fabulous ladies, including many that are here with us. Here is Gina. Hi, Gina.
Oh, hi, Gina.
Who helps moms and women become successful direct marketing and sales. So they all have their wisdom. They all, now when you go to our website, powerfulwomentoday.com, you can find them all. And there's even a section called Power Up where you can get to sample. We change it seasonally. Everybody has got offers and some things that you can get to enjoy the material. Of course, you can connect with all of our mentor experts on LinkedIn and have a way to find out how they deliver their genius. So I thank you, everybody. Thank you for spending this beautiful hour with us. It's always a joy. This was a tough panel. I felt like I had to study before I showed up.
It's
So I
great.
thank you for your
Love it.
generosity, and you know, we continue to do research, we continue to publish, and I just invite you all to participate, and just surround yourself with people that have positive messaging, because even all of, you know, all of the news, the media, TikTok, nothing against TikTok, but you know what I mean. It's like, yeah, is, you know, but that is accelerate, especially that particular app, right? It is designed to keep you at a high state of alertness, and take a break. If you go time yourself, right, and only be in it for a little bit, then come out. So anyways, wishing you all the energy that you can muster so that you can design your life that in a way that energizes you and brings you joy. And please stay safe, stay happy, and most of all, stay surrounded by positive people and positive messaging. So thank you, everybody. Until next time.
Thank you.
Empowering women on a global scale. This has been Powerful Women Today with Carolina Billings. To learn more about how you can join and transform your life and the lives of women everywhere with professional speaking, publishing, podcasting, and web TV, visit powerfulwomentoday.com. Remember to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you like to listen and watch your podcasts.